Hey everyone, Model Man Frank here. How are y'all today? I am looking at the plans here for the SST-40, and I'm playing a game of how to build it. This aircraft didn't come with any plans as per se. I mean, it came with plans, you know, the plan sheet, but it didn't come with a booklet. So here you have to kind of figure out the donkey kind of deal, pin the tail on the donkey. So that's basically what I'm doing. These are the plans. You can kind of see them all folded up here. And this is the plane. So last time you saw it didn't have a firewall. Today it does. I started the program a little early, so if you trying to figure out what's going on, just slide it onto playback. Today I figured right now while we're talking, I would just continue the conversation, talk a little bit about Ballwood. Ballwood's gone up in price a lot. It's really gone up kind of like a little bit too much has it gone up. I mean, I know market values and all that sort of stuff, but it is a hard wood. It is a hard type of wood to procure. And it's one of those woods that only grow in certain areas, which is subtropical. The wood is actually, the tree is actually, when the tree is cut for the wood, the wood is actually moist. And then they put it in these drying houses. They cut them after they're dried, then they cut them into blocks. And then, we get balls of wood as it is today. The only thing is that I guess since, actually before the pandemic, balsa wood started going up in price. I mean, a sheet of balsa wood used to cost $2, and that was a sheet for about maybe a 4-inch or about 4-inch sheet by 48 inches, and that was almost it was like a $2 sheet. Now, for balsa wood, the prices have gone through the roof. Let's see, a 4 by inch by 36 inch sheet of wood of let's say 1/8 inch, either 1/8 inch or 11/16 inch ply or 32nd inch ply, balsa, sorry, goes for almost $6. I mean, that's nuts. So you gotta, when kits become available for free or somebody's giving away a kit, you gotta snatch it up. This plane here was left at our club by one of our club members, and it was his brother's kit. He got it from somebody else, so I took possession of it, and now I'm building it. This is the SST-40. It is a pretty relatively straightforward kit. It's almost box design. It comes with everything in it. I mean, if you're able to find a kit, great. If not, if you just want to build it as a kit, as plans to build, it's really straightforward. You can even build it out of foam board. That's how easy this plane is to build. It is relatively, as you can tell, it's almost like a box construction. There's the tail. I just put that on today. And this is the elevator, which is glued on. I didn't use super glue on it. I wanted to play around with it and make sure I got it straight as possible. But right now I'm just sanding here. How you doing, Peyton? Dremel tool bit with a sanding wheel on it. I'll tell you right now, if dust really bothers you, you may want to wear a mask. I have the fans on, so the dust is relatively kept down to a minimum, especially in here. My sanding wheel is actually blowing away from me, so the dust is going that way. It'll be away from my mouth. But yeah, you could wear a mask if you so deem. I really don't put a mask on. I should, but it's kind of, it's hard to when you have your beard. It's excuses. I know my wife is watching probably. But yeah, I've been doing this for a long time, so I kind of like learned the techniques. Yes, I do work at the airport, Peyton. I do. I've seen you at the airport before. You fly with Grant. Grant knows who I am. He knows where to find me. So, just kind of figure up a little bit more sanding here. That looks relatively like a cockpit, doesn't it? I mean, it's not perfect, but it's close enough. I got asked a question today about my Liberty Sport. So you can see it right here. I mean, you can only see the tail. I'm going to try and put a video out about it this week. I'll really try. Last week I had too many things going on. Things-wise going around in the house. So, definitely next week we'll try and get to something with the Liberty Sport. I'm going to stand up here. I'm using the camera on the computer so you can see the project better at hand. This is what's going on here, so you can see. I'd like to get a camera where I can situate it, like right over there. There's a shelf right over here, and if I can find a camera that's relatively inexpensive, I can stick it there, be able to put my computer here, and I can talk to y'all on the camera a little bit better, and still have my computer over here. But I could put the camera over there. It's a work in progress. It's work in progress. So. This is basically a box of things of the plane, or where the plane came from. There's bugs in here, whatever. And I'm using these box of things to find parts that I can use for the plane. But some of the parts are still here on the table from when I moved the plane. I keep a lot of balsa when I'm building the airplanes, and I always try to make sure I keep my scraps, because you never know when you're going to need them. I keep my scraps in a little jar. I've got a whole big box over there full of scraps, and I can always use those scraps over there, but it doesn't look like I really have many scraps. There's a piece that goes right here, and I'm trying to find it. Since I moved everything around, it's very hard to find. So I guess I'll find it later. Interesting tidbit. I recently put up a video of you can look it up on my shorts video of the B26 Marauder. So there were two B26s made during World War II. There was the B26 Invader and the Marauder. Interesting thing about the Marauder is that the wing load was the wings weren't dihedral. So you didn't have a bend in the wings like you do have on the A28 B26, the Invader. The B26 Invader was built to replace the A20 Havoc, which was another great design, built actually in the 1930s. So the B-26 Marauder was a totally separate aircraft. It had a very high killing the crew ratio, if you would like to say it that way. The aircraft was designed specifically to carry loads on medium bomb range missions to accompany B-25s and other small like A-20 Havoc and so on. The A-20 was also known as the Boston by the Brits. The Marauder was a fast aircraft, but what's stunning about it is for all the 26s, the A-26s Invaders, the Invaders are left, there's not very many A-20 Havocs left. I mean, B-26 Marauders. Not many survived the war. Some of them did. They got repurposed into fire bombers. They didn't really survive that too much. There's a couple left in the country as museum pieces, but the only true flying B-26 Marauder left in the world is by Kermit Weeks and his Fantasy of Flight. If you ever get a chance to go to Fantasy of Flight, I highly recommend it, but call before you go. I do not believe they're open. Since COVID, they closed. And there's been some talk about them reopening. I'm not sure what's going to happen with that, but he has closed Fantasy of Flight. There's something going on over there. He is still doing work on the aircraft, but you can call and maybe talk to them and ask them, hey, are you guys going to open anytime soon? So, but yeah, the B-26 Marauder, the only flying one in the world is that specific one. It was a pretty fast airplane. I think about top speed was close to 400 miles an hour. It could carry. It wasn't really made into an attack version. Again, you had to land at a pretty fast speed on that plane. It had a very straight wing, almost slightly down dihedral for the increase of bomb load that it would carry. The fuselage was very tubular-like. It was built by the Martin Company, which put out a lot of great planes, including very great seaplanes. Martin eventually got purchased out by Lockheed, hence becoming Lockheed Martin. The No, Peyton, I do not work on the Boeing aircraft. I work in the old B-17 hangar sometimes, and I also work for somebody else on the field. But if you ask Grant, he'll tell you where I am. You're over at Sebring Flight Academy, right? I've seen you there before. So, but yeah, you know, it was an interesting aircraft. I mean, it fulfilled the need during World War II, but it took a lot of pilots to get used to flying the plane. And it was sad that not many of them survived. Once the war was over, that was it. The plane was obsolete. The B-26, the AB model 26, was then transferred, was used in Vietnam. It was also used in Korea. The Vietnam version was the K version, which had wingtip tanks and hard points on the bottom of the wing. The D, C, and B models, the D and C model, and then the G and F models were also used in the Korean War, the night version, which was the night fighter version, along with the Tiger Cat, which was the F-7 Tiger Cat. But the B-26 was never used again after World War II ended. Again, they went stateside and they were used for testing. Some of them were actually used in testing of the landing gear system for the Harrier jump jet that would later come to fly in the 60s and late 70s. They trained out if you look up, and I'll put a link in the description box below on this video here. If you look online and type in B-26 Discovery Wings, you'll be able to find it there. I know you'll be able to find it there. Let's see if I can find this piece here. I know you guys will sit here with me and watch me build this for a little bit. Here, this piece goes like this, because this ends up coming like this here. The thing is that I'm probably going to end up having to make it a little bit more snouted. The firewall's here, and the motor has to stick out a little bit. This is not the motor I'm going to use, just showing you it's kind of like what's going to be built up. This is not the motor I'm going to use, it's too tiny. But this is the way it's going to be set up. So I got to build almost like a torpedo style build up here. I'm most likely to put like maybe a, I don't know, like a 900 kV motor. I mean, this thing will be a rocket if I put a 900 on it, depending on the size of the battery, right? Probably a 760 on here, or an 800. But to secure this in place, I'm going to use super glue, and hopefully it will hold. I've already sanded it in place a little bit. Super glue gets hard, and then it's hard to open up. I'm looking for a wrench. I got so many tools, I don't have a wrench on me. Hold on one moment, please. A bunch of wrenches, and I've only got this one right here. But I had a block of wood that's supposed to go up here for the wings. I just can't remember what I did with it. It's somewhere around here. It's probably in that box. I'm not going to go looking for it right now because it's a box. And I've got a lot of wood in there. And I know it's not down here, so. But whatever. What was I going to do? Oh, super glue. So, if you're ever wondering what type of super glue I use Bob Smith Industries super thin 1 to 3 second cure glue. It's an instant cure glue. Gotta be careful when you're using this stuff because it can stick to your fingers and you can end up gluing your fingers. The people that are overseas gluing their fingers or hands to the floor while holding up traffic, this is probably the stuff they use. Because I saw a video where they were actually trying to chisel the concrete from the floor. That's how strong this stuff is. So be very careful when you're using this. On anything. It's better than Gorilla Glue, I think. Again, you may want to use gloves when you're using this, or if you're a young person and you're building a plane with mom or dad, make sure that they help you out. Make sure they don't glue their fingers to the table. Gives off a little bit of a smoky, which is the setup going on. And it's pretty strong right away. You've got to be careful when you're using this stuff. Always put the cap back on. That way, the glue does not, the tip, this one, the tip has gotten, because I didn't secure it tightly, the tip gets dried at the top. It crystallizes. So then I have to pull out the Dremel and drill another hole. So always be careful. Something really important happened today. I used my 3D printer for the first time. I actually printed a little sign for the house. This was my first attempt. It didn't come out very well. After the second attempt happened a little bit better. The extruder for the hose got jammed up, and the glue, I don't know what happened at the bottom there, but I was able to print out as much as I possibly could and get a good print out of it. Next thing will be me trying to make the little boat, the little tugboat, and see how that comes out. And then a little bit down the road, maybe I'll start. It's a learning curve. I got to learn how to really do things and manipulate things, but it looks like it's pretty addictive. I'd like to eventually build. There are some planes that I have seen that I really want to build, and I know it'll take me time to get the components because I only have one printer. I'm not like Troy McMillan out there who has like 18 printers, all to print out, bang out one airplane, So it is a lot of fun when you're watching it work. You're like, wow, I can't believe this thing is actually printing a product. A friend of mine actually from Miami actually made me these. These are actually mufflers for a plane. I'm not exactly sure which plane he got them for, but he gave me those. I got these from a model that kind of like died, but these will go on maybe on a Spitfire eventually. Foam board airplane, I still have the Hellcat. I want to print out a motor. That's my actual ultimate goal. So let me just play around the printer a little bit longer. Then I'm going to build my wife a little cup so she can put her pencils and stuff like that on her desk. And then I want to do a 3D printed motor, a radial motor for the Hellcat. So that'll be the next thing that I do. And then I can finish the Hellcat. The Hellcat's all wired up. The servos for the ailerons are not put in yet. The motor's not in. This is actually the motor here for it. I actually got the setup already. I got this whole rigged up, ready to go. Most likely a 1300 battery or a small 2200 will be used to power that plane. And then I got to paint it. That'll be a whole other story. And again, I will definitely try and keep you guys up to date on what's going on with that. So right now what I'm doing here is just kind of like shoring up how is it I'm going to now what this airplane would fly with is a gas powered motor. I don't have a gas powered motor. Do I want to put a gas powered motor on here? Absolutely not. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to shore up some foam board on the top here and kind of give it a foam board look to it, and then put the motor right up to about here. I'll probably put the motor here and then have it shaft driven. But that's pretty much how it's going to go. Excuse me, y'all. So in aviation news, not much has been really going on. Though, I'm sorry, this past week, I'm sure everybody saw the two Delta Airlines planes that collided into each other while on the ground. Thank God everybody is safe. No injuries were reported. Though the tail of the aircraft was like a lizard on the CRJ. The tail just popped right off. Reports now go that what happened is that the CRJ was not pulled up all the way up to the hold short markers, but it's still being investigated, so that's something that will come out later on. The big thing about these things is that there was, if you listen to the radio broadcast, and you can look it up on YouTube yourself, the radio broadcast between the pilots and the ground controller wasn't going very clearly. I think what was happening was that she was getting confused, and first of all, she called the CRJ a Embraer 145. Clearly, the guy had probably said CRJ or CRJ, because ERJ would be an Embraer. But something didn't sound right. So if you listen to the broadcast, you hear him say, he's going to taxi out, and he does so. But something else happened there. I just don't know what. Actually, this looks like the piece of wood that would probably be going here. You know what? This is what we're going to use. What? This looks like what will work for the back here. Yeah. I think that will work just fine. So yeah, the CRJ, as it was taxiing, he pulls up into the taxiway. Here comes the A350. Now, if the CRJ was not pulled up to the hold short line like they're talking has happened, yes, it would make sense that the tail would be ripped off. But how was it ripped off? If you look at the cut where the A350 was cut, it was right at the bend of the wingtip, right where the slack comes down. So, with that being said, that means the wingtip, so he wasn't pulled up all the way. The wingtip went underneath the elevator and actually pushed the tail right off. But I mean, man, that was cut it like butter. Like really, I mean, it just plopped it right over like a tree. Like a kid bending over breaking a branch. I do praise that everybody is okay. Thank God that nobody else was hurt. Could have been far worse if it happened on the runway. But when you're taxiing, you got to make sure you pull up to those hold short lines. Because, you never know what's taxiing behind you. You can't see. As a pilot, when you're sitting in the plane, you're looking ahead of you. When you're taxiing around, yeah, you're taxiing around with bigger aircraft, and a little Bristol, you don't have to worry about it. You know, if a jet flies over, you'll see the 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 wing of an A350 pass by. You know, that's how tall they are. But in other aircraft, you have to make sure you pull up, even if you have your nose right at the threshold of the whole short lines. But the ground controllers should have been aware of what was going on. Now, if they couldn't see it from the tower, that means there's a blind spot. That's another thing that they have to look at. But of course, you know, the FAA will the investigation team will not find anybody fault. We'll find people at fault, but won't make any. We'll just make suggestions. You know, that's what the FAA is good at. They make it suggestion, and they suggest that people fix this and they fix that. But they don't hold people accountable. That's what lawsuits do. So I am very sure that the people that were on that CRJ got probably free tickets to fly anywhere in the world for life. Though I doubt it. That's probably what would have happened before, but nowadays not so sure. In this day and age, aviation has changed so much. You'd be surprised if they have gotten anything. I hope y'all can hear me pretty well. I can see my boomer, my mic audio working pretty overtime over there. What else happened in the aviation news? Oh, with everything going on and the circus going on TV, no one's talking about SpaceX. Hello, guys. SpaceX. The first civilian did a spacewalk. The first civilian did a spacewalk. He was $1 million man, you know, multi-million billionaire, but he did a spacewalk. He paid to do a spacewalk. He helped develop the suits, and he believed in SpaceX, gave money to SpaceX to actually develop the Polar Dawn. And he did the spacewalk. It wasn't a full spacewalk like in Mercury where he was dancing around in the sky and everything like that, but it was a spacewalk. He got outside of the aircraft, you know, and that should have been front page news, not all the stuff that happened. Also, 9/11 happened. I posted you guys on my community page a video kind of chronicalizing what happened on 9/11. Some of you watching this video probably won't remember what happened on 9/11. You were probably not even born yet. And others probably were born, or you were just too young to remember. On 9/11, we know what happened. 2 planes slammed into the World Trade Center. One slammed into the Pentagon, and another one slammed into the ground. When the passengers found out what was going on, they probably saved hundreds, but not even maybe more than thousands of lives that day, because that plane was actually scheduled to fly into the target was either the Capitol building or the White House. And the one that slammed into the Pentagon, they flew around Washington, D.C., you know, for a while. They were looking for the White House. You know, we don't ever wish death upon people, but they were looking to, you know, kill the president. And my wife and I, we worked on that day, on that fateful day. She worked for Delta Airlines, and I was working for Spirit Airlines. I was actually at home, and I woke up to my father calling me on the phone saying, "You got to turn on the TV." And I told him, "Why? What's going on?" And he's like, "This is an airplane that crashed into the World Trade Center, into the North Tower. It's sickening." And I turned on the television, and they were talking about it. And I said, well, let me let you go because I have to see what's going on. Let me call Enid. I called my wife, and at the time we were dating, and I called her to let her know what was going on. And she's like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? And I said, listen, you need to go to the TV. It's on TV right now. I hung up with her, and I told my father-in-law and my mother-in-law what was going on. And we turned on the television. And just as we turned on the TV, the second plane struck. And that's when I knew. I knew it was what was happening. And I quickly called my office and asked them if it was one of our aircraft, because with Spirit Airlines we flew MD-80s, but we were getting close to buying, I couldn't really tell if it was a 767 or not. Couldn't find out. I had no idea what was going on. They told me to sit tight, come in when you're ready to come in at 3 o'clock, and we'll need you. So I called my then girlfriend, who is now my wife, and she was crying over the phone. She had seen what happened right on television. Everybody was watching in her office, and I told her I had to go into work. They had called me in, so I headed in, and I went and I picked up my coworker, who we drove together back and forth. Office was in northern Dade County, and I was in southern Dade County. It was about a 40-minute drive to work. And we just listened to the news all the way in. That night, my father called me to let me know that Gregory, a cousin of mine, a cousin of my mother's, was missing. He worked at the World Trade Center, and nobody knew where he was. He had called his wife and told him that he had gotten to work. Later, we found out he worked for Cantor Fitzgerald. He worked on the 109th floor, right directly where the aircraft impacted, and he was killed instantly. Probably heard a bang, and that was the end of it. But it was an emotional day for all of us. For many days after that, not knowing. For 3 days, almost 4 days, there were no planes in the air. Everything was grounded. The only thing that flew in the air were fighter jets, making sure no one took advantage of what was happening. Some really bad laws were passed during that time period. Things that should never have passed. All in the name of safety. But it was a dark day. Not a lot of people knew what was going to happen. We all were anxious to see what was happening around the world. But one thing stood in my heart that I'll never forget is when they flashed the name Mohammed Atta onto the one of the terrorists. And I looked up his name on Spirit Airlines' database, and I found that he had flown our aircraft. He had flown one of our MD-80s from Fort Lauderdale to Newark Airport 2 days before the attack. And he had flown many more times before that. He had called our offices, and it was in the middle of the night. He had gotten Detroit, and he had called them and was upset because they spelled his name wrong. So they waived the $25 name change fee. Go figure. So yeah, that was a day that really every 9/11, it is a somber day. It's a day that we remember. The people that died on that day, 3,000 people died that day. To this day, every conspiracy theorist is still coming out and talking about Building 7. I really don't care about... Building 7 was empty. It crashed. Okay, so what? Move on. But people died that day. Families were lost that day. Families were changed that day. People, people went to work thinking they were gonna, work, getting ready for the week. Probably some were, getting ready to go on a vacation the next day. Coming home, hugging their families and having dinner. Gonna go out on the night on the town. It's just not something that you really. It's 1 minute you're here and 1 minute you're gone. That happens. And but sometimes good comes out of it. We make time. Maybe our government learns from their mistakes. Not very much so. So much has happened between now and from there all the way to now. And in retrospect, a lot changed. Things that you cannot control. We're a little needle. You as an individual is a needle on the top of a very big nail head full of a lot of people. I just have a little itty bitty YouTube channel. I get to talk to all of you. But we remember and we'll never forget. God bless 9/11 victims and family members. So, what we're going to do here, let me get back to the flying. Hi, Norm. How you doing? Going to put this piece of wood right here and see if we glue this in place. So, there's just... I like building airplanes. I mean... Sometimes you get a really hard day at work and you just need to relax a little bit. Come in here, I'll turn on the computer, I'll turn on, some sort of program on my laptop, watch a movie, listen to a movie. Good movies to listen to while you're building airplanes. Battle of Britain, that's a good movie to listen to. Top Gun, that's another good movie, it has some good music. First one, second one. Second one I think was better than the first one. I don't know. You be the judge. And then Flight of the Navigator is a good movie to listen to while you're building. The Fighting Lady, you can find that on YouTube. The Final Countdown. No, not the song. The movie, guys, the movie. You can also turn on the radio. I like listening to the radio sometimes when I'm building. What else? Just listening to YouTube, have somebody put on a station and put all their mixes. There's one in particular I watch on here, Casper Site. He's based in the UK and he does a lot of videos, and I just listen to it in the background. Or just movies in general. I'll find some movie. Good Morning Vietnam, that's a good movie to listen to. Wally's a good movie to listen to. A lot of good movies out there that you can always, if you just pick out a movie you like listening to in the background, gives you a little background ambience, or just put music on. If you like to just listen to music, put music on in the background while you're building. I do it all the time. Let me get a piece of wood for this. I'm going to cut it and shape it into that piece. So, it's a good airplane to talk about right now while doing this. Something's not allowing me to move forward here. What is going on? So, some water. So the Polar Dawn crew, talking about SpaceX, is back safely. They came back yesterday. Not a peep about it in the newspaper. Not a peep about them on the news. Go figure, right? And again, it was a private dude that was the spacewalker. They had new suits. The suits look awesome. I really like the suits. Elon Musk, man, he is one brilliant guy. You know? He didn't let anybody tell him, you know what, you can't do that. He did it anyways. So much. I mean, the views that they took, the video that they took from the spacecraft while the guy was out. Now, granted, the guy got out and he basically sat on the porch and just kind of moved around to make sure that he could. I wish they had tethered him and like let him walk around so he could float around. Hey, how you doing? You know. But I guess they didn't allow them to do that. Would have been nice. And then now we have the Starlander came back. Guess what? Came back without any astronauts on it. Came back remote controlled. Just like our airplanes. Just like the model airplanes that fly today. It came back under remote control. Yeah, that looks like it'll work. Okay. So, I'm actually going to trim it down a little bit before I stick it on. You always want to dry fit your parts when you're building an airplane. And make sure things are going to fit. Because if they don't, then you have to get into carving unnecessarily after you've done it. Or you have to remove the part. And that's the bad part. So we keep on just test fitting like that. That looks like it'll work, right? So get my super glue out here. It glued its top again. There we go. And then we just kind of hold this in place. Little dab there. Make sure that sets up. And I like to glue on the inside, that way it's not seen too much on the outside. Just like that. Just like that. And then the last piece here, I'll glue up a little bit here. There we go. And just like that, tail's getting glued together. So yeah, man, I mean, it's really cool that the SpaceX is shooting up these bigger rockets. Now the bigger rocket that they put up was the Starship. And the Starship was when it got into space, it was the largest spacecraft next to the International Space Station, but that's a station that orbits the Earth where people go to. The Starship is the largest vehicle to date, bigger than the space shuttle, commercial vehicle, largest commercial vehicle, not military vehicle, to fly in orbit. And I think the next launch it's going to be a little while, but they're saying that, you know, they want to be the first to, you know, to Mars and all that sort of stuff. I think it's going to be a little while before we get there. Because it's taking a while. And, you know, things like that take a while to do. you know? So, again, you got to be careful when you're working with this stuff because you can glue your fingers together. So I'm making sure to stay away from where I'm gluing. Trust me, it's happened to me before, but I didn't glue my fingers together, which was good. The glue does get on your fingers. It does take a while for it to get off. The only thing that really takes it off is acetone. I don't have acetone, but eventually it comes off because of the oils on your skin kind of eat it away. There we go. Then what I'll do next is put a flashing right over this. Now, I have to cut a hole on the side here so I can fit the push rod through to get to the elevator. The elevator is actually over here. I had it together, but it got broken while moving around. And it will go right like this. This is the elevator. So that's another work to work on another time. But that's all I'm going to do about today. Not much I'm going to work more on today at all. Let me make sure I push this over here. Put my cap on the glue. I think next week what we'll do is we'll work a little bit more on planes, and then we'll talk a little bit about airplanes like we did today. I'll pick out a nice subject that we can talk about. I'll find something that we can talk about. Very much so. One thing I would like to talk to you guys about, definitely, and I think next week would be a great time to do so, which be the B-29 bomber fortress campaigns that were held during the Korean War. I know most of you probably don't know very much about them, and the other day I was looking around on YouTube to find out videos on it. Couldn't find anything. Everything mostly talks about the fighter plane actions during Vietnam. The bomber action during Vietnam, or the fighter plane action during the Korean War. But nothing talks about the bomber fleets. The B-29 and the B-50 were the ones that were being primarily used during the Korean War. The Korean War was always known as the Forgotten War. It was a war that was only 4 years. It was more of a military action that was held by the UN. That was one of the very first military actions as the UN portrayed. You had Britain that was fighting Korea, the North Koreans, which were Chinese pilots, and Russian pilots. Russian pilots were flying the MiG-15. And then the MiG-17. So MiG-17 and more flew. There were not many MiG-17s in the Korean War. That started up in Korea, the Vietnam War. But there too, the MiG-17 was used a lot, and there were Russian pilots flying those aircraft also. As much as Russia wants to try and say nobody was flying those planes. But yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about the B-50 and the B-29 bombing campaigns during the Korean War, which is basically the F-86. Everybody knows about the F-86, how it was a technological aircraft that was built with the help of German technology. Yes, I said it. The Germans built the first swept-wing fighter aircraft, to be operational, the Me-262. And we'll touch a little bit on that too, but I'll talk about the B-50 and the B-29 next week on next week's podcast, and we're going to build airplanes while we do that, because this is fun. I like doing this. And as life goes on, real quick note, please follow me on Patreon. I lower the price if you can. Help me out monetarily. I don't get paid to do this. It's something fun I like to do, but if you can help me out a little bit, it's great. I put a lot of stuff on Patreon that is behind a paywall. You have to, it's $2 a month. $2 a month. And I'll be putting more articles, but they will also be behind the paywall, and I would like it if you guys help me out. But if you can't, I understand. $2 a month is a lot maybe for some people, but it helps me out and it helps me do more articles. But we will be talking next week. Next week's live podcast, we'll talk about the B-29 and the bomber fleets of B-29s of the Korean War. Which bomber fleets were flying? Was it the 8th Air Force? I don't know. We'll talk about that. All right? So, guys, thank you very much, everybody, for watching. To all my new subscribers, thank you very much for subscribing to the channel. All over the world, I know everybody's been watching the short videos that I've been posting every single day. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the views. Thank you for hitting the thumbs up button. If you guys can, hit the thumbs up button right now, right down there. Okay, I think it's right over here, right? It's right over here. Hit the thumbs up button since you're watching the show. And also, click the bell icon so you'll be alerted when something new pops up. That way you know what videos are coming out. I will put out a video. It is in the works for the Liberty Sport. I will bring it down here. Maybe next week we'll work on it a little bit while we talk. And again, peace be with you all. Have a good week. And enjoy yourselves. Hope you had a great weekend. We'll talk to you guys next time, all right? Model Man Frank out for today. Peace and have a great week, guys. Enjoy. Talk to you later.